Look guys, 97% of you watching this will never make it past the CV screening stage. And it's not because you're not smart enough or you don't have enough experiences. It's actually because you don't understand how consultants review your CVs. But don't worry, as a former Bain consultant who's reviewed thousands of CVs and helped design Parthenon's recruiting scorecard earlier, I'm going to show you exactly what we look for. And I'll walk you through my own CV evolution from getting 0 Spring Week interviews to landing all 3 interview offers at MBB. What's up guys, my name is Jack and welcome to my channel where I share everything I've learned over the past 5 years in consulting. Today's agenda is quite simple guys. First, I'll show you why most CVs fail within 10 seconds. Then I'll walk you through my own embarrassing CV journey. And finally, I'll give you the exact framework that I use to get interviews everywhere that I applied. But before we dive in, let's start with a fun fact. Every year, around 15,000 applicants apply to top consulting firms in London. And guess how many make it to the first round interviews? It's just 500, or sometimes less. That's a 3% success rate right there. So 97% of you, after submitting your CV, will never even get to speak to a consultant. And here's the kicker, right? Because consulting firms receive so many CVs, a consultant will typically spend maybe 5, 10, if not 15 seconds on a single CV. I know that because I've done it 100 times. And within that 5 to 10 seconds, if your CV doesn't scream interesting enough, then you're out. I mean, picture this guys, it's 11 p.m, I've just had a long day of client work, and now I've got to shift through 50 hundreds of CV, right? For the recruiting meeting happening tomorrow. Do you know what I'm looking for? Not necessarily the most impressive grades or the best experiences. I'm looking for signals that you can act and think like a consultant. And if I don't see those signals in the first few lines, you're out. Think of it like a first date, right? When you meet someone and their first impression isn't that great. Maybe they showed up to the date late, or maybe they're on their phone the entire time. Well, it's kind of hard to recover from that, right? Consulting CV is kind of the same, you know? It is your first impression and most of you are showing up to that date late. So throughout this video, I'll be walking you through how to leave a great first impression. Now, let me show you something embarrassing, right? This is my own CV evolution over the years. I'm gonna be showing you my first year versus second year and my final year CV. And you'll be able to spot how my CV has improved over the years. Here's my first year CV. I was at LSE, target school, feeling pretty good about my stuff, you know? I wasn't able to land any internships in London, but I did manage to land an internship at a startup in Korea. It was a tiny company with 15 employees, but look at these bullets. Concluded secondary research on successful brands, improved creative thinking skills, enhanced interactive skills. I mean, I literally just wrote that. I developed a bunch of skills, but I didn't actually show how I actually developed them. As you can imagine, the result was 0 interviews. I mean, I wasn't getting anywhere. I thought guys, being from LSE would carry me. I thought my decent grades would matter, but the truth is guys, consultants probably spent 3 seconds on my CV and thought, what is this? And threw it away. Because there's literally nothing on this CV that shows that, oh, this guy could be a consultant. Now, look at my second year CV right here. It is slightly better. After getting rejected from everywhere in my first year, look how I positioned my second year CV with the exact same experience that I had in my first year. It reads, analyze the impact on parody marketing on social media by calculating conversion rate through Excel, and assisted in the production of a movie parody which led to an increase in lead generation by 2% a week. Same small startup, different framing, and this time I got interviews at Big 4 and some Tier 2 companies. Lastly, my final year CV at university, and this is the CV that changed everything for me. I had 2 consulting internships, it was properly formatted, every bullet demonstrating the consultant's DNA skill sets. The result was interviews at MBB, as well as Tier 2 consulting firms, and pretty much every consulting firm that I've applied to. Now here's what's interesting, right? My actual experience didn't change a whole lot between my second and third year. What did change was how I framed it and how I demonstrated those consulting skill sets. So let me break down exactly what I learned and how you can improve your CV to be part of that 3% club. Tip number 1 is to be presentable. Your CV has one job, guys. It is to make that tired consultant keep reading. And first principle on that is to keep your CV to 1 page. I mean, I don't care if you founded 3 companies or had multiple Goldman Sachs internships. Maybe that could be impressive, but please, you can keep that in 1 page, right? I mean, even MDs or partners with 20 years of experience oftentimes keep their CV to 1 page. So You're a student, you're getting one page. And honestly, guys, if you can't prioritize information into one-page CV, then how would I be able to trust you that you can prioritize information in a client presentation? Also, guys, in terms of font, you can use Arial or a Calibri. Keep the size to 10 or 11, and also keep consistent margins and formatting throughout your CV, right? Because if your CV is messy, it signals that you can't handle the detail, which is kind of a deal breaker, right? And lastly, guys, do not use any fancy templates or designs, right? Save that for when you're applying to more creative roles, like marketing, for instance. Your consulting CV should be clean, structured, and neat because you're not submitting for an art project. What you are submitting is a problem-solving statement. Tip number 2 is the 4-section rule. Guys, your CV basically only needs these 4 sections, which are education, work experience, extracurriculars and leadership, and lastly, skills and interest. That's it. No professional summary, no wishy-washy bits about who you are. Don't care about that, just stick to that 4 sections. When I was reviewing CVs, those fluffy intro sections, they were an instant red flag because it doesn't tell me anything about your actual consulting skill sets, right? I would oftentimes read, I am a very motivated and passionate individual about consulting with experiences in XYZ. Well, okay, but it doesn't really tell me much, right? Consulting recruiters don't want to hear that you are motivated. They want to see it through results, and that's what you should have in your CV. And now, here's what you should include in each of the 4 sections and how you can nail it. And I'm going to be using my final year CV to demonstrate these points. First off with education. Start with your most recent degree and go back once. So if you're at university doing undergrad or masters, state your A-level grades as well. And here's an insider tip, guys. Consulting firms actually read through your education more carefully than you think because they look for signals such as intellectual horsepower and consistency. For example, guys, if you have a strong GPA or you have a first-class honors degree, that signals that you are a hardworking individual. In this section, guys, you can also include some relevant modules as well. For example, if you're studying a very qualitative subject and you want to bring out that you also did study some quant subjects, you can bring that out as well. Number 2 is the work experience, right? And this is the heart of your CV, guys. And we'll deep dive into it in more detail in the next section, but just remember to have it in reverse chronological order. Make sure that your impact is directly shown in these work experiences and that you are demonstrating those consulting skill sets. The 3rd section is the extracurricular activities, and I would say this is an underrated section, but it can be very critical for consulting firms because they're trying to look for what you are and how you are like outside of work. When I used to review CVs, I used to look for signals such as leadership, teamwork, and maybe entrepreneurial activities too. The pro tip here is not to just list all your societies and clubs as well as volunteering activities, but actually tell me what you actually did. For example, you can include things like the size of the society, how many attendees you were able to gather through your events, as well as your impact. For example, if you did a social media marketing campaign, resulted in a 20% increase in the follower count. Now that shows initiative. So the last section is skills and interest, and we will go into more detail later on, but this is a section where you have to show your personality, and trust me guys, it really matters. Remember guys, consultants are reviewing hundreds and hundreds of CVs every day, so they're not really looking for creativity, they are looking for clarity. Think of your CV as like a Michelin star dish that is presented to you, right? It has to be clean, consistent, and also instantly appealing. So stick to these 4 sections because having a clear and logical layout will win you half the battle. Tip number 3 is probably the most important one, which is to use the AIR framework in every single bullet point you write in your CV. AIR stands for action, impact, and result, and if you use this framework, your CV is going to sound like a consultant's problem-solving story. And let's start with a bad example, right? And trust me, guys, I've seen a ton of these examples when I was reviewing CVs. It reads, worked on a marketing project in a team of 3 for a local business to improve customer engagement. I mean, that doesn't really tell me much, right? What did you actually learn? What skills did you actually develop? And what was the impact that you actually had? Now, here's how we turn that around with an AIR framework. Action could be led a 3-person team to analyze last 12-month customer purchasing data. Impact could be to identify the low repeat purchase segment, and the result of that, increase retention by 12% through running a new campaign. And when we combine that, it will read, led a 3-person team to analyze the last 12-month purchase data and implemented a targeted email campaign for low repeat segments, which resulted in a 12% increase in retention rates. You see the difference, right? The second example shows real impact and quantifies the value. That's exactly how consultants communicate, and you almost want to preemptively do that in your CV. Now, here's a little insider tip. When we review your CVs, we're not just looking at what you did, we're actually also reverse engineering your thought process to see, okay, how were you able to take initiatives? How did you solve your problems and deliver measurable outcomes? And also, guys, on top of that, here is why quantification is a key. Consultants love numbers because numbers mean impact and results, right? And at this point, some of you might be thinking, wait a minute, I don't really have any tangible corporate experiences. How can I still show a quantification on my bullet? You can always reframe your bullet point. For example, instead of saying I helped organize an event, you could say you coordinated logistics for 100 plus attendees, right? And then instead of saying I was responsible for social media management, you could say increase club participation by 30%, for instance, through redesigning social media campaigns. Also, guys, mastering the AIR framework isn't just about your CV, guys, because ultimately it trains your brain to communicate and think like a consultant. So candidates that can master the framework in their CV stage often also do exceptionally well in their personal and fit interviews. Tip number 4 is to optimize your CV for consulting skill sets. You have to optimize your bullet points for what we call the consultant's DNA, and that is going to separate a good CV from an interview magnet CV. When I used to review CVs, I wasn't just looking for big brand names or big impact. Although they are important as well, I'm also specifically looking for these 6 key skill sets, which were problem-solving skills, analytical skill sets, teamwork and collaboration, leadership initiative, communication skills, and lastly, client and stakeholder management skills. And now, here is the mistake that 95% of candidates make. They list these skills instead of showing me these skills. I mean, they'll write something like, I developed communication and leadership skills by presenting at a case competition. That absolutely tells me nothing. Instead, guys, you should demonstrate these skill sets through evidence, right? For example, to show leadership, you could say, led a 5-person team to deliver market entry presentation to 15 senior executives, resulting in a first place at the national case competition. That sentence, guys, shows not only leadership, but also teamwork, communication, and client presentation skills as well. So before you hit submit on that application, just ask yourself this question for every single bullet point on your CV. If a consultant reads this line, will they see at least one of the 6 consulting skill sets? And if the answer is no, well, you either have to rewrite it or throw that bullet point out. Guys, your CV should read like a story of someone who already thinks and acts like a consultant. And trust me, guys, when consultants spot that in your CV, they will move your CV into that interview pile. Tip number 5 is to make your skills and interests section a conversation starter. This one is small but powerful because most candidates use this section as almost like a filler, right? They'll just write generic things like reading, traveling, sports. Doesn't really mean much here. But here's the truth, right? This is a section where interviewers will create a connection with yourself. Remember, guys, at top consulting firms like McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, consultants review dozens and dozens of CV every day, and it's a long process. So you might want to make that process a little bit more interesting for them. For example, if you ran a marathon, instead of just saying running/marathon, you could add an interesting fact by saying completed the Berlin Marathon, and have a bracket that says best time 3 hours 45 minutes. Alternatively, guys, if you're into cooking with friends, you could say hosted monthly dinner parties for 10 plus friends. Lastly, guys, instead of just traveling, you could also spin that and say backpacked across 10 plus countries in Southeast Asia and vlogged my trip on YouTube. I mean, you want the consultants to read it and think, I'd love to chat about that. And in fact, guys, in my final round interview, I literally spent 30 minutes speaking about League of Legends with a senior partner. And I genuinely think that that is what got me the offer. Alright guys, let's quickly recap, because if you've made it this far guys, well, you're already ahead of most of the candidates. So first of all, keep it clean, one page, neat formatting. Second, just have the 4 key sections only. Third, use the AIR framework for every single bullet point. Fourth is to demonstrate the consulting DNA, don't just claim it. Fifth is to make your skill section memorable and conversational. And lastly guys, just remember that your CV isn't about just listing everything you've done. It's about proving that you already can think like a consultant. And guys, your experiences, they are good enough. Trust me, they are. That small internship that you did, that society role that you have, even that part-time job, you can demonstrate the consulting skill sets if you just spin it and frame it correctly. And guys, if you need help with your recruiting process for consulting, feel free to book in some time with me using the link below. It is completely free and I'll be personally assessing whether I can help you land that consulting offer. But more importantly guys, stop thinking that you need better and more impressive experiences. You don't. You've seen my CV, right? What you do need is better translation. Thank you so much for watching guys, and if you found this video helpful and insightful, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video where I'll be sharing more insider tips on how to break into consulting.